Hey guys, tonight we're slipping our toes into the warm, red sands of Mali, the sun sinking low over a slow, winding river. You can almost hear the quiet splash of water jars being filled, the murmur of griots humming old epics. The air is dusty, orange, and smells faintly of roasted grains. You're not in some bustling, steel and glass city now, you're somewhere that lives on the wind's schedule. You're about to follow the life of Mansa Musa, the so-called richest man in history, though honestly you probably won't survive this environment without sunscreen made of crocodile dung, yes, real thing, and a serious appreciation for sand in every crevice of your life. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're squinting against the sun. You trudge along a narrow footpath where kids with shaved heads and bright eyes chase each other between mud brick houses. The village near the Niger River is unremarkable, except that in one of these homes a boy named Musa grows up watching the river change colors with the seasons. He's not a prince yet. Not really. He's the son of a minor noble in a world where lineage is a bit, let's say, interpretive. Mali's early empire is a confederation of strongmen, trading towns, and farming communities. It's held together with tribute, gifts, and just enough fear to keep ambitious cousins from poisoning your dinner. But Musa is studious. He listens. He notices. He's the sort of kid who watches people argue and asks why they're really mad. He learns Arabic script early, not uncommon in a kingdom that's been trading with North Africa for generations, but still impressive. One family griot will insist later that Musa was memorizing law codes before his voice broke, though historians still argue whether that's true or a posthumous PR campaign. At night, he lies on a mat under mosquito netting and listens to the elders tell the Sunjata epic, the founding story of Mali's first emperor, a man who supposedly couldn't walk as a child but later built an empire. There's a soft drum in the background, and the warm smell of shea butter candles. In these moments, Musa learns more than history. He learns style. You don't rule Mali with brute force alone, you need the right words, the right timing. You need to pay the griot so they don't sing mean verses about your bald spot. By day, Musa runs errands for older cousins. He carries messages between compounds, learning which uncles drink too much and which aunties are quietly running the family's salt caravan contracts. He's observant, which is essential in a world where alliances are made over calabashes of fermented milk. One dusty afternoon he tries to help repair a broken loom. His friend jokes he has kingly fingers because he ruins the warp thread so thoroughly no one will trust him to do real work again. Still, he's got a good reputation. Not a fighter exactly, but no coward. He's the boy who calms an angry goat by whispering to it for half an hour. There's a joke that Musa's so patient he could convince a camel to pay taxes. Mali in this era is already impressive. It controls gold mines in Bambuk and Bure, trades coal and nuts, and taxes caravans crossing from Morocco to the forest zones. Musa watches the salt traders arrive. These men look like ghosts, pale with desert dust, leading exhausted camels whose eyes seem older than time. Salt isn't glamorous, but it's critical. It preserves food. It balances diets. At times it's literally worth its weight in gold. Musa learns early that controlling salt routes is as important as controlling armies. Sometimes he sits near the market, listening to Tuareg merchants debating prices in 3 languages. He watches a man weigh gold dust on a tiny scale, blowing gently to make sure no extra speck tips it unfairly. One evening he helps an elder write a letter in Arabic. The letter is going north, to a trader in Sijilmasa. Musa is careful with the calligraphy, despite mosquitoes biting his ankles. It's one of the first times he feels the weight of connection, that Mali isn't just villages and rivers but part of a world that stretches over oceans of sand. But for now, he's still a boy. His world is small. He's not sure he even wants power. Ruling means obligations, rivalries, a lot of uncomfortable meetings with dignitaries who don't bathe enough. He plays Mancala under a tree with friends. He helps the old woman next door chase off monkeys stealing her millet. He listens to the rising wind before a storm and knows it's time to cover the grain. Historians still argue whether Musa's family intended him for greatness from the start or if his path was pure accident, born of other men's ambitions and a few well-timed deaths. But you're here now, walking alongside him on these dusty footpaths, watching the future emperor blink in the reddish glow of dusk, not yet aware that the world will one day know his name. You rise before dawn, roosters crowing, the smell of wood smoke curling lazily through the air. Musa is older now, and you're right there with him, trudging toward the city that will shape his young adulthood, Niani, the capital of the Mali Empire. It's not Rome. It's not even Cairo. But it's bustling in its own understated way. Merchants lay out beads, salt, and carved wooden tools. Children chase each other between the legs of elders engaged in elaborate greetings that could take 20 minutes. You wait politely while someone thanks someone else's entire ancestry for existing. Musa's arrival here isn't exactly on a royal parade float. He's a minor noble son, which means he gets a small compound, a couple of decent robes, and an allowance that would make a modern college student weep with envy, just enough for books and very stale beer. He studies. The empire prizes Islamic scholarship, so Musa sits cross-legged with clerics who patiently correct his Arabic grammar while smacking flies. At night, he lies awake on his mat, repeating Quranic verses in the quietest whisper. You can hear the scratching of reeds on parchment as teachers write notes for him to memorize. But don't picture this as purely pious. Musa is also learning the courtly arts. Flattery is an Olympic sport here. A well-timed poem can win you a salt caravan concession. He observes carefully who insults whom, who pretends they're friends, and who actually has a dagger hidden in their sash. One day he joins a quiet meeting in a shaded courtyard. Elders debate a border dispute between two villages. Musa watches every wrinkle in their faces, learning how to keep tempers calm, how to phrase things so both sides feel like they won. He later practices this skill on a stubborn donkey who refuses to carry firewood. Historians still argue whether Musa was truly a natural diplomat or simply the best-trained compromise artist of his generation. You can see him wandering the outskirts of Niani, watching blacksmiths fan their tiny charcoal furnaces, sending sparks up into the gathering dusk. The smell of hot iron and burnt wood sticks to your clothes. Musa listens to their quiet banter, their complaints about caravan taxes, their thoughts on the best charms to ward off river spirits. He's not isolated. His friends include sons of traders from Jen, scholars from Jiao, and even a Saharan Tuareg boy who boasts he's crossed the desert twice without crying. They all share stories late at night under the stars, passing around calabashes of thick, frothy millet beer that tastes like someone forgot to add flavor. One merchant shows him a small piece of Chinese silk, soft as a whisper. Another offers a chunk of Saharan salt big enough to club a hyena. Musa examines them with fascination. Mali is wealthy, yes, but its real treasure is connection. Goods, ideas, and people flow in and out like the Niger's changing tides. Of course, life isn't all polite study. Musa has his share of petty arguments over debts, inheritance quibbles, and minor brawls at the marketplace. Once, he nearly loses an eyebrow when a cooking fire flares unexpectedly. Another time, he's caught in a rainstorm so brutal he jokes he's cleaner than any Quran page. But even then, he learns. He sees how the capital handles these problems. How guards keep order with stern looks more than blades. How scribes track debts with absurd thoroughness. How courtiers use jokes and gentle insults to diffuse anger. One evening you're with him at a gathering for a local judge's retirement. There's music, a chorus warm, watery pluck. A griot reciting ancestral epics in a voice that could lull a crocodile to sleep. Musa listens raptly, appreciating every word, even as mosquitoes swarm his ankles. He also notices which family doesn't show up. Silent protests have as much power as loud ones. He files that lesson away. Musa's life at this stage is not glamorous, but it is rich. He's absorbing everything: laws, traditions, the art of mediation. He reads legal documents that make your eyes cross, tracing obligations about salt quotas, gold dust measurements, and who exactly owns that one half-flooded rice field. He starts wearing better clothes, dyed indigo that stains his fingers blue. It's a subtle sign of status but also a fashion risk. He jokes that everyone in the capital can recognize a new noble by how badly he launders his first indigo robe. There's a rumor going around that Musa is ambitious. He denies it, of course. He insists he just wants to serve the empire. But late at night, when he thinks no one's listening, he wonders what it would take to make Mali truly great. He wants scholars, libraries, roads that don't flood every rainy season, a tax system that doesn't depend on whose cousin is collecting it. But for now, he's patient. He knows he's not next in line for anything. The reigning emperor has other heirs, other plans. Musa is useful but not essential. At least, not yet. Still, you can sense it. In the hush of the hot nights, with crickets chirping and the Niger River a dark ribbon in the distance, there's a quiet certainty building in him. He might not have a throne, but he's building a mind sharp enough to rule if he ever needs to. You wake to the faint call to prayer drifting through the warm dawn haze, and Musa's older now, a respected figure in Niani, though not yet the ruler. You're sitting cross-legged with him on a mat as he reviews trade documents, the flickering lamplight casting long shadows on the mud-brick walls. He's become a trusted advisor. The emperor, Mansa Abu Bakr II, is planning something ambitious, an expedition across the Atlantic. Yes, you heard that right. Musa listens with his patient face on, while inside he's probably thinking you want to sail where. Historians still argue whether Abu Bakr's plan was practical navigation or total fantasy, but Musa keeps a polite, non-committal smile as the emperor describes building hundreds of boats. You can practically feel the heat of the forge where workers shape iron nails, the sting of palm fibers being twisted into rope. Musa is in charge of logistics. He oversees purchases of grain, water skins, wax-sealed jars of honey, all stacked in busy storehouses humming with bees and gossip. He's good at this. He negotiates fair prices without starting blood feuds, and when a delivery is short, he talks the merchant into admitting it with the resigned calm of someone who's probably going to make you pay for it later, but nicely. One afternoon he leans over a shipment of cola nuts and cracks a joke about feeding the entire fleet on bitter medicine. A nearby scribe snorts so hard he nearly ruins an official document. It's not glamorous work, but Musa excels at the details. He sees the entire system as one enormous, sluggish animal that needs coaxing, not beating. At night, he meets with scholars who help him calculate provisioning for months at sea. They debate wind currents, the limits of camel caravan knowledge of the Western Ocean, whether the sea simply ends in a giant waterfall. One old marabout insists the Atlantic is a spiritual barrier meant to separate worlds. Musa nods thoughtfully, though later he mutters under his breath that maybe the old man just can't swim. You see Musa sending reports back to the emperor. He writes carefully in Arabic, smoothing the parchment so no wrinkle distorts his words. When the scribes complain about his cramped handwriting, he teases them about needing better eyes. Meanwhile, the city hums around him. Caravans arrive in Niani's markets, bringing copper, ivory, and Sahara-dusted camels who glare at everyone as if offended to be alive. Musa takes time to greet these traders, learning the news from Geo, Timbuktu. He's building a network. He knows every clever merchant who can slip 2 extra bags of salt onto a manifest without paying duty. He knows which cleric will sign off on a tax exemption if you phrase it as a charitable donation. He knows the families who resent the emperor's plan to drain Mali's treasury on ships that might simply vanish. One evening, after balancing so many ledgers he sees numbers even when he blinks, he sits on his mat and watches fireflies rise from the grass. You're right there with him, swatting mosquitoes, listening as he wonders out loud, what if Abu Bakr doesn't come back? It's not a casual thought. The empire is wealthy, but stability is fragile. Gold, salt, slaves, cola, ivory, these don't just walk themselves to market. It takes an army of scribes, guards, porters, and well-fed farmers to keep Mali running. Lose the emperor, and the fragile alliances could crumble. Historians still argue whether Musa warned Abu Bakr or encouraged him. But the expedition sails. Hundreds of boats slide down the river, loaded with men who chant prayers, ready to brave the unknown. Musa stands on the bank and watches the sails shrink to white specks. He says nothing. He's too busy calculating, wondering who's going to run things now. And that's when his life changes. Because the emperor doesn't return. Time passes, and the court grows uneasy. Traders spread rumors, some say the fleet found paradise, others claim it sank with all hands. No sign ever returns from across the Atlantic's heaving, silver-grey waves. So, a meeting is called in the grand courtyard, surrounded by the high walls of baked mud that glow orange at dusk. Musa is summoned, robes carefully arranged, mind calm as a still pool. He knows it's coming. They offer him the throne. Not with flowers and kisses, but with a grim sort of necessity. He's the man who understands the books, the trade routes, the factional squabbles. He's the one who made sure the empire didn't starve while half its treasury was turned into ships. You watch him nod. He thanks them with dignified humility. Later, in private, he probably allows himself one deep exhale of "what have I gotten myself into?" The griots will sing that Mali chose him for his wisdom. The scribes will record it as a moment of solemn consensus. Historians still argue how voluntary it really was, how much backroom pressure and bribery smoothed the path. But in the end, Musa becomes Mansa Musa. You can see the torchlight flicker on the palace walls that night as the city digests the news. Somewhere, a griot begins composing the first verses of what will become legend. And you? You're still here, feeling the desert night grow cooler, listening to the wind whisper through the grass, watching Musa's silhouette as he sits in quiet thought, a ruler now, the weight of an empire settling across his shoulders like a cloak he can't remove. The next dawn finds you standing beside Musa on the palace terrace, the air still cool before the sun bakes the clay walls. He's now Mansa Musa, officially crowned, blessed by imams, acknowledged by elders with ceremonial gifts that include everything from fine indigo cloth to a suspiciously bitey goat. You watch him accept it all with that calm, measured politeness he's mastered. He thanks the elders at just the right length, jokes about not letting the goat sleep in his quarters, and subtly reminds them he'll be collecting taxes promptly this year. But it's not just about ceremonies. The capital feels tense. With Abu Bakr gone, everyone's testing the new Mansa. Merchant guilds want tax breaks. Regional chiefs want more autonomy. The army wants back pay, new swords, and someone to blame for losing men to the Atlantic. Musa handles it the way only Musa can. He calls meeting after meeting in shaded courtyards, sweat dripping from his brow as he listens carefully. He's a negotiator at heart. He doesn't threaten or flatter too obviously. Instead, he balances concessions like a master juggler. You see him one hot afternoon talking to the leader of a clan known for banditry on trade routes. Musa praises the man's strength and courage so thoroughly it almost sounds insulting. Then he offers official caravan guard contracts at a fair rate. Problem solved. Historians still argue whether this approach was shrewd statecraft or just Musa buying loyalty wholesale. He also starts reorganizing the administration. You're there as scribes shuffle nervously, clutching their wax tablets. Musa wants better records of everything: taxes, caravan schedules, even births and deaths in far-flung villages. The clerks complain bitterly that it's too much work. Musa responds with that infuriatingly calm smile and a new salary scale for diligent scribes, and quiet dismissal for those who don't comply. He reforms the military, too. Not with flashy new weapons, but with logistics. He improves food supply lines, ensures soldiers are paid on time, and makes sure the local chiefs who provide men understand their loyalty isn't optional. One morning, you walk with him to a training ground where archers practice under a giant baobab. He watches them carefully, nodding at solid shots, offering advice he picked up from older commanders. He jokes with them about missing targets, but he also notes which ones are disciplined, which ones drink too much. And he doesn't neglect the spiritual side of rule. Mali is an Islamic empire in name, but practices vary wildly. Some villagers pray 5 times daily, others combine Quranic teaching with ancient animist rituals. Musa is a devout Muslim but no fool. He patronizes clerics, funds mosques, yet never outright bans local traditions. One evening, you sit with him as he listens to a Ma'about argue passionately that all idols must be destroyed. Musa responds gently, better to teach than to burn. The Ma'about grumbles but accepts the gold Musa hands over for a new school. He's also investing in prestige. He wants scholars. He wants books. He imports works from North Africa, fat, precious volumes carried carefully on camelback across the Sahara. He pays scribes to copy them, even if half fall asleep halfway through transcribing the introductions. The palace begins to fill with visitors. Tuareg traders in flowing veils, blacksmiths with smoky faces, scholars in spotless white robes. Everyone wants something, and Musa learns to grant favors carefully, making people owe him. But governance isn't all success. You see him exasperated, head in his hands, after a chief refuses to pay taxes, and Musa has to send soldiers to negotiate. You're there when a scribe miscalculates caravan tolls and causes a shouting match between rival merchants that ends with Musa paying both off just to shut them up. Historians still argue whether Musa's centralization was enlightened administration or petty control freakery. And you're with him on cool evenings when he relaxes at last, leaning back on mats under open skies. He talks quietly about dreams of seeing Cairo, of making the Hajj, of showing the world Mali's greatness. One night, after too much honeyed beer, he confides that he wants Mali to be known not just for gold, but for learning. He laughs and says good luck with that, knowing perfectly well most people would rather weigh gold dust than read anything. But the dream sticks with him. And with you, too. As the moon rises over Niani's walls, you feel the wind whisper through the grasslands. You hear the distant sounds of traders closing up shop, mothers scolding kids, griots softly plucking chorus to lull families to sleep. You see Musa sitting quietly, eyes half closed, imagining roads stretching all the way to Egypt, caravans lined up like ants, scribes filling libraries with words no one's ever seen before in West Africa. He's Mansa now. And he knows ruling isn't just surviving the day, it's planning for decades. The dawn breaks hot and merciless over Niani, and you're trudging through the bustling market with Musa, who insists on seeing things firsthand despite the chorus of advisors telling him it's undignified for a Mansa. He waves them off with that dry smile and listens as traders shout about salt bricks, dyed cloth, slabs of copper, and baskets of millet. A camel groans at you like it's personally offended you exist. You rub its nose apologetically. Musa just laughs. He's not here for shopping. He's inspecting. The market is Mali's heartbeat. If prices are wrong, if merchants are angry, the entire empire feels it. He leans in to listen as two Songhai traders argue about who cheated whom on a deal last month. He interrupts with a gentle "Come now, let's not scare the customers," before arbitrating so smoothly they both leave satisfied but slightly poorer. Historians still argue whether Musa really liked these trips or just saw them as political theater. But there's more going on than market haggling. Musa is worried about the edges of his empire. Reports come in from the north, Tuareg groups are raiding caravans again. Out east, the Songhai cities grumble about tribute. To the south, forest kingdoms resist paying anything at all. You sit with Musa as he studies hand-drawn maps on parchment, fingers tracing winding rivers and half-guessed trade routes. A scribe corrects him timidly on one detail, and Musa praises him so earnestly the man turns bright red. He calls in military commanders, asks detailed questions about supply chains. Not just how many men do we have? But how many days of millet per soldier? You hear one captain mumble that he preferred the old Mansa, who didn't care about such bean counting. Musa just smiles. Beans feed armies, he says. He knows force alone isn't enough. He starts sending gifts, fine cloth, gold dust, even trained scribes, to resistant chiefs. A bribe? An alliance offering? Historians still debate it. But it works more often than not. Meanwhile, in the palace, Musa is establishing something radical: regular taxation. No more one-time ransoms or ad hoc gifts when the emperor shows up. He wants set rates, recorded properly, enforced evenly. It's a nightmare. Chiefs complain they're being ruined. Merchants bristle at new tolls. Scribes weep over long columns of numbers. You're there as Musa soothes one merchant with a reduced rate and threatens another with losing access to the salt routes. He's not cruel, but he's unyielding when it matters. Pay now, or watch your rivals get rich while you sit there sulking. He also understands propaganda. He funds griots to sing not just the great deeds of Sunjata, Mali's founder, but new verses praising Musa's justice and wisdom. In taverns and markets, you hear ballads where he becomes a wise lion under whose rule even the poor can sleep safely. He also worries about faith. Mali is big, diverse, and unevenly Islamic. Musa wants unity. He sponsors mosques in major towns. He funds Quranic schools. One afternoon you join him for prayers in the palace courtyard, the sand warm beneath your feet. Afterward he sits cross-legged with a visiting scholar from Tlemcen, debating the finer points of Maliki law while a half-dozen scribes frantically try to keep up. He's serious about learning. He hires teachers from North Africa to tutor not just him but the children of nobles. He even pays for some scribes to travel to Fez or Cairo and study. You see him slip them extra gold before they leave, murmuring that he expects them to come back smarter than him. He grins as he says it, but there's no doubt he means it. Historians still argue whether this was genuine piety or savvy nation-building. But you see the effect. Slowly, Mali changes. Towns grow. Markets expand. Roads become safer, even if the desert always looms with danger. Gold still flows north, salt still flows south. And word begins to spread, Mansa Musa is not a warlord grabbing for loot, but a ruler with a plan. Late one night, you sit outside his quarters. The palace is quiet except for insects buzzing and the distant splash of someone drawing water from a well. Inside, Musa is bent over his maps again, marking trade routes, noting tributary towns. He leans back, sighs, and mutters to himself that it's like herding cats. You can't help smiling. Because you know he'll keep trying anyway. He's not the most charismatic ruler, not the bloodiest conqueror. But he's steady, patient, and determined that when people think of Mali, they'll think of order, wealth, learning. You watch as he finally blows out his lamp, the glow dying slowly in the dark. He rests his head on his mat, eyes closing. Tomorrow will bring new complaints, new calculations, new bargains to strike. But for tonight, the empire is quiet, and so is he. The desert wind carries whispers long before the riders appear, dusty messengers galloping through the gates of Niani with news from the north. You're with Musa when he hears it, a delegation from Egypt is headed his way. Not an invasion, thank the stars, but scholars, merchants, and an envoy of the Mamluk Sultan. Musa just nods, then adjusts his turban and says, "We'll need more cushions." Because when prestige comes calling, comfort is key. You help prepare for the guests, watching as the palace staff scrambles like startled guinea fowl. More mats are laid out, lanterns polished, sweet mint tea brewed by the bucket. You're pretty sure one unfortunate cook is still peeling dates 3 hours later. When the delegation arrives, it's everything Musa hoped for: robed scholars with ink-stained fingers, traders offering glassware and perfumes, a slightly overfed diplomat who insists on being fanned at all times. They all bow low, speak in florid Arabic, and compliment Musa's reputation for wisdom and wealth. You see Musa beam, just a little. He's not vain, exactly, but he knows reputation is currency. He hosts them for days. You sit through endless polite debates, impromptu poetry recitals, and dinners where no one touches the camel stew until the most senior imam finishes his third blessing. The Egyptian envoy brings word from Cairo, too, tales of splendor, of scholarly circles, of mosques older than Mali itself. Musa listens with wide eyes. The vision begins to form: if Cairo is the heart of the Islamic world in Africa, then Mali can be its golden lungs. And that's when he makes the decision. He will go to Mecca. Not just a modest pilgrimage, he will undertake the Hajj in such splendor that the world cannot ignore Mali again. Historians still argue when exactly Musa decided this, but the Egyptian visit lit the fire. You watch as plans begin. It's like preparing to move an entire city. He wants thousands, yes, thousands, of attendants. He wants the most brilliant scholars, the best griots, the most reliable soldiers, and so many camels that the herders start charging double. He shrugs and pays anyway. Caravans are organized. Gold is weighed. Fine robes are stitched. Scribes write lists so long they start using palm fronds when they run out of parchment. Musa doesn't just want to travel, he wants to demonstrate Mali's strength and devotion. He commissions qans to be copied, gifts to be crafted, and new sandals for every man in the royal guard. No joke, one poor cobbler nearly gives up and takes a vow of silence. But before departure, there are logistics. You're there as Musa meets with counselors, ensuring Mali won't fall apart while he's away. He appoints a deputy, his trusted cousin, to manage day-to-day affairs. Not everyone's happy about it. Rumors swirl. Some whisper that Musa might not return. That the Hajj is an excuse to flee, or worse, claim a crown in Cairo. Musa, always one step ahead, calls a public gathering. He stands under a great cottonwood tree, sun behind him, and declares his love for Mali in a speech so carefully humble it could have been written by a griot and a diplomat working overtime. The people cheer. Some cry. You tear up, too, but blame it on the dust. Then, at last, they set out. You walk beside Musa as the first camels plod southward, the drums echoing behind you like a heartbeat. It's not just a journey, it's a parade, a message to the world. The caravan stretches for miles, 8 officials, cooks, soldiers, scribes, and travelers with no official role other than having wide eyes and strong legs. They cross the savannah slowly, stopping at villages where children chase the camels and griots recite poetry about the sun bowing to Musa. Every few days, Musa holds court beneath an acacia tree, settling disputes, trading with locals, and gifting gold dust wrapped in cloth. He gives to imams, to widows, even to a blind dog owner whose tale of woe might have been slightly embellished. You see Musa listening carefully, nodding, always choosing generosity over suspicion, at least on the surface. Historians still argue whether this charity was faith-driven or strategic, a kind of soft diplomacy via coin purse. Then, finally, the terrain changes. The grass thins. The air grows dry. Sand begins to bite at your ankles. The Sahara looms, vast and indifferent. You and Musa stand on a ridge looking north. The desert blinks back at you, empty and endless. Musa turns to you, voice low, "If we survive this, the world will know who we are." You don't answer. Your throat's too dry. But you nod. Because you believe him. And the wind carries the scent of sand and ambition into the stars above. Sand becomes your constant companion. It slips into your sandals, your robes, even your mouth when you try to speak too quickly. The Sahara doesn't care who you are, even if you're Mansa Musa. The caravan moves slowly, painfully, snaking across dunes under a punishing sun. Camels groan. Men mutter prayers. You catch Musa smirking once as someone suggests maybe they should have brought a boat. He's got that dry humor that appears at the worst possible time. But he never complains. Every morning he rises before dawn prayers, checks on the camels and their loads, asks the quartermaster about water reserves. You see him distribute water rations himself on the worst days, making sure no one is shortchanged. Historians still argue whether Musa really understood how dangerous the Sahara was. Some say he underestimated it, others argue he planned obsessively, hiring guides who knew hidden wells like old friends. At night the desert turns freezing. You huddle near the fires, listening to griots recite lineages so long they're like lullabies. One evening a singer gets so bored with his own recitation he starts throwing in invented ancestors, and Musa calls him out with a laugh. Still, beneath the humor, the journey is deadly serious. One camel train gets lost in a sandstorm for 2 days. When they're found, half their goods are ruined. A guide is found dead near a dry well, having gone searching for water alone. Musa orders him buried with honors, pays his family triple what he owed them. The griots compose a short, solemn song for him that evening, their voices rising like the wind. You and Musa often ride near the front, talking quietly. He wonders about the scholars he'll meet in Cairo, the debates they'll have. He also wonders about trade deals. You realize he never stops thinking about Mali, even while crossing this emptiness. He doesn't just want to pray at Mecca. He wants to make sure the world sees Mali as more than a kingdom of gold. He wants it to be respected. You also see his piety. When the call to prayer sounds, even if it's just one muezzin croaking it out in the cold dark, Musa kneels in the sand, face pressed to the ground. His attendants follow, the dunes glowing silver in moonlight. One night you're woken by voices arguing. Two caravan leaders are at each other's throats over who stole whose camel feed. Musa emerges from his tent in nothing but a robe and scowls them silent. If you want to fight, I'll take the feed and give it to the poorest traveler here. Or you can shake hands and sleep. They shake hands. Eventually. Historians still argue about how large his caravan really was. Some claim tens of thousands. Others insist the real number was closer to 1,000 or 2. What you know is this: it feels endless. Even from a high dune you can't see the end of the line. They stop at oases like Agadez and Bilma, where green palms and cool pools feel like miracles. Musa uses these stops to trade salt for dates, restock water, and, of course, hand out gold. He's methodical about it. No chaotic tossing of coins. He calls in local leaders, negotiates carefully, gifts them enough to feel respected but not so much as to cause chaos. Except, sometimes he does overdo it. In one oasis, you see the price of grain double after Musa's generous gifts throw the local economy off balance. He grimaces when told. Too much charity is its own burden, he mutters. You don't say anything. You're too busy trying not to laugh. Nights remain cold and clear. You lie staring at the stars, hearing snoring, the crunch of guards pacing in sand, and once, the eerie yowl of a desert fox. Musa points out constellations he learned from Berber guides. One of the scholars traveling with you insists on naming them all in Arabic, then in Mande. Musa listens, nods, and asks him to write them down so his children can learn too. That scholar looks as if he's been handed a crown. But the desert doesn't end quickly. There's always another dune. Another day's march. You see men break down crying, camels refuse to rise. Musa never shouts. He kneels, soothes the animals himself if he has to, offers tired men extra water or gold. He knows that beating them won't work. He needs them to want to keep going. One evening as you approach the final stretch, the wind picks up, turning the sky red with dust. Musa pulls his turban tight and glances back at the straggling caravan. Tell them to tighten the line, he says. We'll get through. But no one will get lost. And you ride down the line repeating the order, voice hoarse, sand in your teeth, wondering if he's right. Wondering, too, if you'd follow anyone else across this barren sea. Because even now, as you're coughing up dust, you can't deny it, he believes in this pilgrimage, in the people around him, in Mali's promise. And somehow, that's enough to make you believe too. The desert finally thins out, yielding to rocky plains and scrub. You almost cry when you see the first real trees again, scraggly though they are. The caravan cheers softly, too exhausted for much else. Musa smiles. We're not done yet, he says. But we're close. Soon you're approaching the Egyptian border regions. The guides switch from Tuareg to local Bedouins, who wear linen like it's a second skin. They greet Musa with elaborate bows, recognizing wealth and authority at once. You notice Musa's posture change. He straightens in the saddle, voice smoother in diplomatic Arabic. You see the shift from desert survivor to statesman. Historians still argue whether Musa planned every detail of this diplomatic entry. Some say he left it to chance. But you watch him coach his entourage carefully, when to bow, how much gold to offer the customs officers, how to phrase greetings to avoid sounding arrogant. Even you get a pep talk. Don't stare too long at anyone. Don't try to sell them anything weird. And for the love of God, let me do the talking. You try to look offended. Fail. At the first Egyptian settlement, the locals gawk at the column of camels, the golden-laid saddles, the richly dressed griot singing praise poetry even when hoarse. Children run alongside the caravan. One tries to climb onto a camel and is gently handed back by Musa himself, who gives the boy a coin the size of his palm. The Egyptian governor's men arrive quickly. They're polite but clearly overwhelmed. They ask Musa's men how many people are in the caravan. The scribe shrugs. A lot. Negotiations begin over entry taxes. Musa listens, fingers steepled, then gently offers triple the standard rate. The Egyptians blink. Then they accept. You see the logic. Pay more, but make them like you. Make them talk about you. Soon the caravan is treated like honored guests. Food, water, tents. Musa responds by handing out gold dust, gifts of silk and salt. It's generous. Some might say reckless. But it works. Word spreads ahead of you like wind. By the time you're nearing Cairo, every town seems prepared for the Malians. Markets line the roads. Dancers perform at impromptu festivals. But Musa isn't just playing the rich tourist. He wants to talk to scholars, imams, and merchants. He holds open gatherings, debates Quranic verses with local clerics, asks them about Egyptian irrigation methods and trade networks. One night you see him huddled over a lantern with an old scribe, learning how Egypt manages its land taxes. We could use that, he says quietly. Historians still argue how much he really absorbed on this trip. Some call him a genius administrator, others say he was just gathering ideas to adapt later. What you know is he was always listening. And then Cairo looms. Even from a distance you see its skyline, minarets, domes, walls the color of old bone. Musa gathers his people. Remember who you represent. Mali is strong. Mali is faithful. Be humble. But not too humble. You have no idea what that means, but you nod anyway. The first sight of the city stuns you. Busy, loud, alive. Perfume sellers hawk wares beneath towering gates. Camels and donkeys jostle each other. Mosques gleam in the sun. The Egyptians watch you arrive with a mix of awe and calculation. They're used to visitors, but not this. Griots sing your entrance. Drummers beat out rhythms that make the Egyptian guards tap their feet before remembering to look stern. And at the head of it all rides Musa, gold-inlaid staff in hand, face calm. You see the subtle smile when he hears the crowd gasp at the sheer size of his caravan. But the real test waits ahead. You're summoned to the citadel, seat of the Mamluk Sultan al-Nasir. Musa prepares meticulously. His robe is perfect. His attendants practice their bows. He reviews the gifts, gold bars, fine cloth, salt, glassware, QANS copied by Malian scribes. You're so busy you barely notice the day passing. By the time you're walking up the citadel steps, your legs feel like boiled millet. Inside, it's cool and dim. Guards in gleaming armor. Courtiers in embroidered robes. A hush falls as Musa approaches the Sultan. Musa bows. Deep. But he doesn't prostrate himself fully. A hush. Historians still argue whether this was deliberate. You watch the Sultan's face. For a second there's surprise. Then the faintest smirk. He inclines his head. Diplomatic checkmate. Musa speaks calmly, praises the Sultan's wisdom and Cairo's beauty, offers gifts so lavish even the scribes struggle to list them all. You see the Egyptian's eyes widen at the weight of the gold. You also see respect in the Sultan's gaze. And you exhale. Because you realize this is what Musa wanted. Recognition. Respect. And he got it. The days in Cairo flow like gentle water, slow but unceasing. Musa moves through the city as both guest and ruler, a living bridge between Mali and the ancient Egyptian world. You trail behind, absorbing the smells of spices and fresh bread, the sounds of merchants bargaining, the distant call to prayer echoing off stone walls. Musa visits mosques with awe, running his fingers over carved marble, pausing to recite verses he knows by heart. He listens to sermons, sometimes adding a quiet comment that earns nods from learned men. You notice his eyes light up most when he meets scholars debating theology, law, and history, subjects close to his heart. One evening, at a scholarly gathering, a debate ignites over the role of women in Islamic society. Musa listens patiently, then shares stories from Mali about the influential women in his court, advisors, traders, and even warriors. Some attendees murmur surprise, others nod thoughtfully. Historians still argue about how much influence women really wielded in Mali, but Musa's stories certainly add a compelling voice. Amid the learning, the caravan's gold continues to shimmer and dazzle. Musa's generosity extends beyond protocol. He gives gold to craftsmen, to the poor, to anyone who crosses his path. It is said that his gifts were so immense, Cairo's economy felt the ripple for years. Markets inflated, prices shifted, and local rulers scrambled to adjust. You see the delicate balance Musa maintains, generosity without chaos. At times, the abundance of gold causes concern among Egyptian officials, but Musa's diplomacy smooths tensions. He insists on fairness, asking his advisors to monitor the effects carefully. Between formal meetings, Musa explores the city's bustling bazaars. He watches artisans shape glass and pottery, smells dyes from textile stalls, and tastes sweet confections he's never encountered before. At night, you join him as he strolls under lantern light, the city's energy calming in the cool air. One quiet moment finds you both on a rooftop, gazing at the Nile flowing silently below. Musa reflects on the journey ahead, the final leg to Mecca and back, and the legacy he hopes to leave. His voice is low, almost a whisper. If I can show the world Mali's greatness, then perhaps others will see us not just for our gold, but for our wisdom and faith. Historians still argue about Musa's motivations, whether his pilgrimage was driven by piety, politics, or personal ambition. Maybe it was all three, intertwined like the calligraphy on the QANS he carries. As days turn into weeks, preparations for departure begin. New camels are bought, supplies restocked, and fresh garments woven. The scholars and griots rehearse their stories and songs for the long journey back. You watch Musa sign letters and decrees, appoint deputies, and send messages to Mali, each a thread connecting the vast empire he rules, even from afar. When the time comes to leave Cairo, the city gathers to see the caravan off. Musicians play, crowds cheer, and the procession moves slowly through streets alive with excitement. Musa rides at the front, regal and serene, the sun catching the glint of his golden staff. You feel the weight of history in that moment, the crossing of cultures, the meeting of worlds, and the promise of return. And as the caravan moves onward, you settle in for the next stretch of the journey, heart full of stories and sand still clinging to your boots. The road out of Cairo is a ribbon of dust and memories. As the caravan retraces its path, you notice how much the city's bustle fades behind you, replaced by the steady rhythm of camels and the soft murmur of the desert wind. Musa rides with a calm you envy, but you can see the weight of his thoughts pressed behind his eyes. You recall the scholars he met, wise men debating the nuances of faith and law, and wonder how their words will echo back in Mali. Musa's discussions weren't just academic, they were seeds planted for future courts and councils. One afternoon, the caravan pauses at a lush oasis where date palms sway gently. Musa uses the time to consult with his advisors about the new irrigation techniques he learned in Egypt. He's eager to see if the methods could flourish back home, helping Mali's farmers coax more bounty from the soil. You watch him run his hands through the water, deep in thought. The contrast between desert survival and the promise of fertile land strikes you, a king bridging worlds of sand and green. The journey is not without its quirks. One day, a camel, infamous for its stubbornness, decides mid-march to sit down and refuse to move. Musa approaches it calmly, murmuring soothing words. The camel eventually rises, perhaps out of respect for the king or mere exhaustion. You chuckle quietly, noting how even the desert animals recognize Musa's quiet authority. The scholars nearby speculate whether this was a planned demonstration of patience or a happy accident. Historians still debate if such stories were later embellished to build Musa's legend. At night, as you settle beneath the stars, the griots spin tales both ancient and new. One favorite recounts a clever Malian trader outwitting a band of desert nomads with nothing but words and a handful of dates, a story that draws laughs and gentle applause. Musa joins in the laughter, his eyes twinkling like the constellations above. Despite the harshness of the journey, moments like these bring warmth to the cold desert nights. As you approach the border between Egypt and the Sahara once again, the landscape shifts. The rocky plains give way to endless waves of sand. The temperature drops sharply after sunset, and you bundle up against the chill. Musa reminds everyone to keep close, emphasizing the importance of unity in these perilous stretches. His calm voice becomes a steady anchor, soothing restless travelers. You find yourself admiring the balance Musa strikes between ruler and pilgrim, leader and companion. He moves through hardship with a grace that seems almost effortless, even as the desert tries its best to wear everyone down. With the vastness of the Sahara stretching ahead, you brace for the long march yet to come, comforted by the steady presence of the man who leads you all. The Sahara stretches before you like an endless sea of sand, its waves shimmering under the harsh sun. The caravan moves slowly, camels plodding through dunes that rise and fall like ancient rhythms. You're reminded how every step feels both a challenge and a meditation. This vastness has a quiet way of humbling even the mightiest travelers. Musa rides near the front, his robes billowing softly in the breeze, eyes scanning the horizon as if searching for secrets hidden in the shifting sands. You sense a profound respect in his posture, not for the desert's cruelty, but for its timelessness. At night, the stars ignite the sky in spectacular patterns. Musa points out constellations, weaving them into stories you hadn't heard before, tales of travelers and spirits, guidance and fate. His voice is low, almost a whisper, coaxing you into the kind of sleepy reverie perfect for these endless nights. One evening, you hear the soft sounds of desert drums. A small gathering forms around a fire, and Musa joins, sharing songs from Mali that mix with the rhythms of the Sahara. The blend is unexpected but soothing, a gentle reminder that even in isolation, cultures find ways to connect. Yet the journey is not without its quirks. At one point, a camel famously known for its stubbornness decides to sit mid-journey, refusing to move. Musa approaches it with a quiet patience, whispering softly until the camel relents. You can't help but smile, even desert animals seem to respect their king. Historians still argue whether such tales were carefully orchestrated demonstrations of leadership or charming anecdotes added later to Musa's legend. Either way, they add a human touch to the grandeur. The caravan navigates treacherous stretches where the sand is loose and the heat unrelenting. Water is rationed carefully, and everyone learns to listen to the desert's subtle warnings, the way the wind shifts, the way the sun casts shadows. One afternoon, you watch Musa confer with a local guide about hidden wells and secret routes. He is respectful, knowing these secrets are the lifelines of survival. You note how his leadership blends humility with authority. As days blur into nights, the desert silence deepens your thoughts. You imagine the empire he left behind, the people counting on his safe return. It's a balancing act between duty and faith, exhaustion and hope. You find your eyelids growing heavy beneath the endless stars, lulled by the gentle rhythms of the caravan and the soft murmurs of the desert night. After endless dunes and shimmering heat, the caravan finally reaches the edges of the Sudanese plains, a welcome change in the landscape. Here, the trees return in clusters, their shade a gentle relief from the desert sun. You stretch your legs gratefully, feeling the earth's firmness beneath your boots once more. Musa moves with renewed energy. You notice his eyes light up as he greets familiar faces, local merchants, tribal leaders, and scholars who know of Mali's fame and the pilgrimage splendor. Their smiles are warm, the hospitality genuine. The air smells different here, rich earth mingled with smoke from cooking fires, the scent of fresh bread baking in clay ovens. It's a sensory feast after weeks of sand and silence. During a stop at a bustling trading post, Musa examines textiles dyed in brilliant colors and spices piled in pyramids of scent and flavor. He chats with traders about the routes connecting West Africa to the Red Sea, asking questions about goods, tariffs, and customs. His curiosity never wanes. You watch as he listens more than he speaks, soaking up knowledge that might one day benefit Mali's growing economy. Historians still debate how much the pilgrimage functioned as a political mission versus a spiritual journey, but for Musa, the two seem inseparable. One evening, you sit by the fire with Musa and his griots. They perform songs recounting Mali's history, the rise of empires, and the wisdom of ancestors. The melodies are hypnotic, weaving history and myth into a tapestry that eases you toward sleep. You learn of curious local customs, like a festival celebrating the harvest where people paint themselves with natural dyes and dance until dawn. Musa seems amused, even tempted to join, but his duties keep him watching from the sidelines. As the caravan prepares to cross the last stretches before Mecca, Musa gathers his closest advisors. They discuss supplies, route safety, and diplomatic gifts for leaders ahead. Every detail is meticulously planned, though the desert always holds surprises. You feel the anticipation building. The journey has been long and arduous, but the goal draws nearer. Mecca's holy walls, its bustling markets, and the call to prayer that will echo in Musa's heart for the rest of his life. And through it all, you're reminded that this pilgrimage is more than a journey of miles, it's a passage through cultures, faiths, and the very soul of a king. The caravan presses onward, crossing the vast expanse between Sudan and the Arabian Peninsula, a stretch both daunting and full of promise. The heat wraps around you like a heavy blanket during the day, while nights bring a crisp chill that sneaks through your robes. Musa remains steady, his gaze fixed ahead but always aware of the smallest details, the pace of the camels, the morale of the men, the safety of the precious gold. You see him checking maps and speaking softly to guides who know the land's hidden dangers. You notice the subtle rituals that mark each day's beginning and end, prayers whispered at dawn, offerings of water to the earth, careful sharing of meals. These moments create a rhythm that steadies the caravan's pulse amid uncertainty. Along the way, Musa encounters travelers from distant lands, their languages and customs a kaleidoscope of human experience. He exchanges greetings and stories, a king humbled by the vast tapestry of cultures connected by faith and trade. One evening, by the firelight, a griot recounts a lesser-known tale of a Malian princess who journeyed alone to distant courts, using wit and diplomacy to forge alliances. Musa listens intently, perhaps seeing reflections of his own travels in her bravery. Historians still debate the full extent of women's roles in Mali's political sphere, but stories like these suggest a world more complex than the one often painted in textbooks. The desert silence allows for introspection. You find yourself drawn into Musa's quiet moments, watching as he contemplates not just his journey but the future he hopes to build, a Mali connected to the wider world through faith, knowledge, and wealth. The gold carried by the caravan glints faintly in the moonlight, a reminder of the power and responsibility resting on Musa's shoulders. Yet, beneath the riches lies a deeply personal quest for spiritual fulfillment. As the caravan draws closer to the Red Sea coast, the landscape changes again, salt flats shimmer in the distance, and the air carries the sharp scent of the ocean. The end of the pilgrimage is near, and with it, a moment of profound transformation. You settle in, ready to witness the final chapters of this remarkable journey unfold. The caravan descends toward the Red Sea coast, where the endless desert finally meets the glimmering expanse of water. The air shifts, carrying a salty tang mixed with the earthy scent of dry brush and sun-baked stone. You feel a slight breeze that seems like a welcome whisper after weeks of dry heat. Musa watches the horizon thoughtfully. This part of the journey marks not just a physical crossing, but a symbolic one, between the familiar and the sacred, between the world he rules and the world he seeks. You notice the bustling port town alive with sailors, merchants, and pilgrims from across the Islamic world. The docks creak under the weight of goods, and the calls of traders mingle with the chatter of travelers preparing for their own pilgrimages. Musa makes arrangements to secure safe passage across the sea to Jeddah, where the caravan will resume its overland trek to Mecca. He engages in quiet negotiations, his reputation preceding him and smoothing many potential obstacles. The nights here are cooler, with stars reflected faintly in the dark waters. Musa joins others in quiet prayers, their voices blending into a soft chorus that seems to reach toward the heavens. One evening, a local storyteller captivates the group with tales of ancient sea voyages and mystical islands said to be guarded by creatures both wondrous and strange. Musa listens, his eyes distant, perhaps imagining the vastness of the world beyond his empire. Historians still debate the influence of maritime trade on Mali's wealth and cultural exchange, but the connections are undeniable, and Musa's journey hints at these wider networks. Between meetings and preparations, Musa spends time reflecting on the journey so far, its trials, its surprises, and the friendships forged along the way. The caravan's camaraderie feels stronger here, forged in shared hardship and quiet moments beneath vast skies. You settle beside him one evening, the soft lap of waves a lullaby. The pilgrimage end is near, but the story is far from over. With every step, every prayer, Musa shapes a legacy that will ripple through history. And as you both watch the stars above the Red Sea, you feel the deep, gentle pull of faith guiding this remarkable journey forward. The caravan disembarks at Jeddah, the gateway city to the holy sites of Mecca and Medina. The dusty streets bustle with pilgrims, their faces reflecting a shared purpose and a deep reverence. You find yourself swept up in the quiet energy, a mix of anticipation, faith, and the solemn respect that permeates every step toward the sacred. Musa moves with quiet dignity, his presence commanding both curiosity and respect. Local merchants recognize the famed Malian king, and conversations buzz with tales of his generosity and the gold he carries. You sense a buzz in the air, a collective awe tempered by the calm routine of pilgrimage life. The caravan makes final preparations for the journey to Mecca. Camels are rested, supplies checked, and prayers whispered. Musa spends time visiting scholars and religious leaders, exchanging ideas, and absorbing the rich spiritual atmosphere. You notice how he listens carefully, valuing knowledge as much as gold. He shares stories from Mali, bridging distant worlds through faith and experience. One night, around the campfire, Musa recounts a tale from his youth about a wise griot who taught him patience and the power of stories. The group listens, rapt, as the fire flickers, shadows dancing on faces etched with fatigue and hope. Historians still debate the extent to which Musa's pilgrimage influenced Mali's Islamic scholarship and cultural development. What is clear is the profound personal transformation evident in his calm demeanor and reflective gaze. As the caravan sets out toward Mecca, the holy city's distant silhouette grows clearer with each step. The call to prayer rings out over the desert, a rhythmic anchor guiding the faithful home. You walk beside Musa, sharing in the profound stillness that comes with nearing a sacred goal. The gold and grandeur are but whispers now, overshadowed by the pilgrimage's spiritual weight. In these moments, the king becomes a humble pilgrim, a man shaped by his journey and by the faith that propels him forward. You feel a quiet reverence settle over the group, a shared understanding of the path's true meaning. And as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in soft hues, you ready yourself for the final approach to Mecca, a chapter both historic and deeply human. The final leg of the journey toward Mecca unfolds slowly, each step bringing the holy city into sharper focus against the golden desert horizon. The air is cooler now, filled with the mingled scents of incense, spices, and distant fires from nearby encampments. You can almost hear the quiet hum of prayers carried on the breeze, a soothing soundtrack for this sacred pilgrimage. Musa moves with a steady, measured pace, his eyes reflecting both exhaustion and deep reverence. You imagine the countless pilgrims around you, each with their own stories, hopes, and prayers. It's a moment where individual paths converge, creating a tapestry of faith that feels both ancient and timeless. As you travel, Musa shares stories of Mali's vast river systems, the Niger's winding course, the fertile lands that sustain his people. His voice softens when he speaks of home, reminding you of the ties that bind a king to his kingdom, even thousands of miles away. One evening, a group of pilgrims shares a peculiar tradition, offering small clay tokens shaped like stars to the desert, a symbol of guidance and protection for travelers. Musa listens intently, intrigued by these varied customs that enrich the pilgrimage experience. Historians still debate the origins of certain rituals performed during the Hajj, but their shared purpose remains clear. to foster unity and spiritual reflection among diverse believers. The desert nights are serene, the sky a vault of sparkling diamonds. You lie back on your camel's soft blanket, the gentle rocking a lullaby as Musa's voice weaves tales of legendary Malian leaders, their wisdom and their courage. Despite the grandeur and wealth accompanying Musa, there is a quiet humility in these moments. The pilgrimage strips away titles and gold, revealing the universal human search for meaning and connection. As dawn breaks, you glimpse the minarets of Mecca's great mosque, their silhouettes etched against the soft morning light. A hush falls over the caravan, the culmination of a long, arduous journey felt deeply by every soul. You prepare yourself for the sacred rituals ahead, knowing that Musa's pilgrimage will mark not only a personal milestone but a turning point for Mali's place in the wider Islamic world. The towering minarets of the great mosque grow larger as you approach, their intricate designs catching the early morning light. The air hums with anticipation and quiet reverence. Pilgrims move with purpose yet gentleness, their footsteps a collective heartbeat echoing through the ancient city. Musa dismounts from his camel, taking a moment to steady himself before entering the sacred precinct. You notice the subtle shift in his demeanor, a mix of awe, gratitude, and solemnity. This is the moment he has traveled thousands of miles to reach. The rituals begin, walking the tawaf, circling the Kaaba 7 times, each step measured and full of meaning. Musa's voice is soft as he recites prayers taught to him by Mali's scholars, blending his heritage with the sacred traditions of Islam. You watch as he moves through the rituals, surrounded by fellow pilgrims from across the globe, each carrying stories as rich and diverse as his own. The sense of unity is palpable, a spiritual tapestry woven from faith, history, and hope. In the quiet moments, Musa reflects on the journey's lessons, the strength found in patience, the power of generosity, and the humility required of leadership. You sense a profound transformation beneath the robes and gold. Historians still argue about the extent of Musa's influence on Mecca's political and religious circles, but his presence undeniably left a mark, inspiring admiration and respect. Later, Musa visits the markets near the mosque, where merchants offer rare spices, silk, and manuscripts. He exchanges gifts and stories, strengthening bonds that will echo back to Mali. As night falls, the city glows softly under lantern light. Musa gathers with fellow pilgrims, sharing tales and songs that celebrate faith and perseverance. You feel the gentle warmth of community, a reminder that even kings find solace in shared human experience. The pilgrimage peak is behind you, yet the journey's deeper meaning continues to unfold, a spiritual odyssey shaping a legacy far beyond gold or empire. You rest under a sky thick with stars, heart full of reverence and a quiet hope for what lies ahead. The days following the sacred rituals feel like a gentle unwinding, a soft descent from the spiritual heights you've just scaled. Musa moves with a calm grace, no longer the restless traveler but a pilgrim transformed by the journey's weight and wonder. The hustle of Mecca's streets pulses around you, but here, beneath the quiet moments, you find stillness. Musa visits the libraries and madrasas, where scrolls and manuscripts whisper centuries of knowledge. You imagine the scent of aged parchment and ink, a tactile link to the scholars who shaped Islamic thought. He listens attentively as local teachers share interpretations and histories, exchanges that hint at Mali's potential to join this intellectual circle. There's a peculiar charm in the daily life around the city, the call to prayer punctuating the hours, the smell of cardamom and saffron from street vendors, and the soft murmurs of families gathering to share meals. Musa partakes in these rhythms, blending into the vibrant mosaic of Meccan life. A light-hearted moment arises when Musa tries to negotiate for a rare fabric but ends up charmed by the merchant's wit and storytelling instead. You chuckle quietly, sensing the universal language of humor bridging continents. Historians still ponder how much Musa's pilgrimage influenced Mali's cultural exchanges, but the visit undoubtedly planted seeds of intellectual and spiritual growth. As the pilgrimage winds down, Musa prepares to lead his caravan homeward. The return journey promises new challenges but also the comfort of home and familiar landscapes. You sense a bittersweet tension, leaving the sacred but carrying its lessons close. That night, under a velvet sky streaked with silver, Musa reflects aloud on the transformation not just of himself but of Mali, a kingdom poised on the cusp of change. You lean back, feeling the weight of history settled softly around you, a lullaby of faith, journey, and quiet power. The caravan turns westward, retracing the long path through the desert with a slower, more reflective pace. The sun's heat still presses down, but there's a gentler rhythm now, like a sigh after a deep breath. Musa rides with quiet dignity, his thoughts seemingly drifting between memories of the pilgrimage and hopes for Mali's future. Along the way, you notice how Musa interacts differently, with a softness born of spiritual growth. He listens more, smiles more, and shows a curiosity about the lands and peoples you pass. The gold remains, but it feels less like a burden and more like a symbol of connection. The group pauses often, taking time to rest and share stories beneath wide-open skies. One night, a griot sings a song about the rivers of Mali, their life-giving waters and ancient legends, weaving the homeland spirit into the desert silence. You catch glimpses of Musa's thoughts on governance, inspired by what he learned in Mecca, how faith, wisdom, and justice can intertwine to nurture a kingdom. Historians still debate the tangible changes his pilgrimage prompted, but the echoes of his journey resonate in Mali's later developments. A quirky tidbit emerges when a local desert tribe teaches the caravan how to read subtle signs in the sand, a skill that turns out to be surprisingly useful when unexpected weather threatens. The long journey home allows for reflection, camaraderie, and a quiet joy in the familiar. You feel a growing sense of closure, yet the story still holds moments of surprise and gentle humor. As the landscape shifts from endless sand to the greener banks of the Niger River, a comforting sense of arrival settles over the group. The return home is not just physical but deeply symbolic, a full circle of journey, faith, and leadership. You prepare to witness the final chapter of Musa's story, where legacy and history entwine beneath Mali's vast skies. The caravan finally approaches the familiar lands of Mali, the Niger River glinting like a silver ribbon winding through lush greenery. The air feels cooler here, filled with the rich scents of earth and growing things, a welcome contrast to the arid desert you've left behind. You can almost hear the distant murmur of village life, a gentle reminder of home and the life waiting to resume. Musa rides ahead, his posture regal yet relaxed, as if carrying the weight of his journey lightly now. The people gather along the banks, curious and reverent, eager to welcome their king back from a pilgrimage that will echo through history. You see children pointing, elders whispering, and traders pausing their work to catch a glimpse of the returning caravan. The celebrations are modest but heartfelt, music, dancing, and quiet conversations under the sprawling baobab trees. Musa's gold, once a symbol of awe and extravagance, now seems a humble offering, a bridge between Mali and the wider world he has touched. You recall moments from the journey, the dusty roads, the shimmering seas, the soft prayers whispered under countless stars. Each step of the pilgrimage has shaped Musa, transforming him from a distant ruler into a leader deeply connected to his people and faith. Historians still debate the long-term impacts of his Hajj, but one thing is clear: Musa's journey marked a turning point, opening Mali to new ideas, trade, and spiritual growth. The legacy you've witnessed is one of quiet power, humility, and the enduring human quest for meaning. As the evening settles, you find a peaceful spot beside the river, the gentle flow a lullaby. The stars emerge, soft and steady, guiding you into calm reflection. The story draws to a close, but its echoes will linger, soft reminders of a king's journey, the bonds between cultures, and the timeless search for connection and peace. The journey we've shared tonight is one of both grandeur and gentle humanity. You've traveled deserts and cities, witnessed rituals and quiet moments, and glimpsed the heart of a man transformed by faith and discovery. As you settle into rest, let the rhythm of the Niger's waters and the warmth of Mali's lands lull you into calmness. Remember that history is not just about dates or gold, it's about people, their stories, and the ties that bind us all across time and space. So breathe deeply, release the day's weight, and let these quiet reflections carry you into a peaceful sleep.